Hello and welcome to Connecting Hope, presented by the Hamilton County Council on Alcohol and Other Drugs. We do appreciate you tuning in and watching us. I'm Will Hampton. This is Monica Greer.
How are
Excited
you?
for another show?
I am.
We have Brandon George coming in.
Yes.
He's going to talk about legislation and a lot going on there. That's in our next segment. But right now, what's going on with the council?
We are very excited that our Youth Service Awards are coming up on Monday. The county commissioners are a big part of that, and seniors from each of the schools are awarded at their school level, and then we'll select an overall winner.
I know I've been at that award ceremony before, and the students, they're really honored, and they're so thankful for the recognition.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times they do that stuff they're not thinking recognition.
Yeah, and it really makes you feel like, wow, how did they do all of this?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So that's Monday.
yeah.
Looking forward to that. Another thing we're looking forward to is a big public service announcement on drunk driving prevention.
Yes. Yeah, I'm so excited to be able to share that. It's going to be great. We're going to blast it within the community, the schools, social media, anywhere that we can get it.
Well, let's take a look at it.
Okay.
Here it is, the PSA from the Hamilton County Council on Alcohol and Other Drugs.
911 location of your emergency.
There's car parts everywhere. There might be more than one vehicle, though.
Is anyone trapped in the vehicle?
The driver's hanging out of the driver window.
It's really a whirlwind of emotions going through. I honestly, when I'm going there, and even when I'm walking up to the house, I try to put myself into the position where I try to be as compassionate as I possibly can, because what if it were one of my kids? Sorry to be the one to have to tell you this, but your son Jason was killed in a crash this morning. Honestly, I don't think it's really something that you get over. Certainly, it's something that you can get past, but that's not something that you'll ever forget. And I remember, I've gotten phone calls from loved ones saying that they were glad it was me that knocked at their door that night, and that gives me some comfort knowing that I made that terrible news a little bit better for them in the way that I delivered it, and the compassion that we as a sheriff's office show. Don't drink and drive. I think that's the biggest message, is we don't want them to drink and drive. With all the rideshare applications that are available and programs that are available to get them home safely, why not utilize that? Yeah, it may cost you a little extra money, but it's certainly less money to get an Uber than it would to go through in a whole OWI arrest and process.
Have you ever attempted or contemplated suicide? No. Put your hair back behind your shoulders. Look straight at the camera, don't blink. Turn and face to your left. So go ahead this way for me.
Good decisions save lives, bottom line, right?
Yeah.
How are you going to use that video?
We are definitely going to share it with all of the school corporations and have them share it with their staff, with their students, and share it on all of the social media. It's going to be a YouTube link, so anybody can share it and see it. And it's just We want any driver to see it.
Yeah, we thank John Brown, Judge Brown, and all
Yeah.
the people from the prosecutor's office
Yeah.
and sheriffs for making it happen.
Yeah, it was very impactful.
All right, we're going to take a break. More of Connecting Hope after this short timeout. Welcome back to Connecting Hope. Will Hampton along with Monica Greer, and we have our special guest, Brandon George, Vice President of the Mental Health America of Indiana, and also the Director of the Indiana Addictions Issues Coalition. So Brandon, did I get all that right?
You did indeed.
Yeah,
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. And we're glad that you're here because just recently the Indiana legislative process sort of wrapped up, or it's kind of, they're still thinking, right?
Yeah.
But big deals in our world that we address here in Connecting Hope. Big decisions, right?
It's been a really big year. I was joking beforehand, before we got on, that I told everybody this past fall that it was going to be a quiet session because of COVID and because of redistricting and some other things that maybe took priority. And I couldn't have been any wronger, actually.
A lot going on.
Yeah, so tell us about what happened with telehealth. I know that was one of the pieces.
This is something that we and a lot of other community partners really cared about. So what happened during COVID is that we changed a bunch of regulations on the fly, right? Everybody had to switch from in-person to teleservices because of the health concerns. And essentially it just kicked us forward 5 years where we wanted to be anyways. And it was kind of one of those situations to where you can't put the toothpaste back in the container. And so all these people made adjustments. And so luckily the Secretary of FSSA, Dr. Sullivan, and other folks agreed that this is something we needed to make permanent. So Senate Bill 3, which actually ended up being Public Law 85, was signed in, and it allows licensed clinicians to be able to provide telehealth services and get reimbursement for it. And that's the big issue, is that some people are doing this already, but to make it really widespread use, you have to have reimbursement through our payer sources, insurance, et cetera. So we think that's a really big deal. We hope to expand it further than just licensed folks. We can do a certified folks, et cetera, in the future. But it's really a good start, we think.
Yeah.
And some help with workforce was also part of this session, correct?
Absolutely. And so those things tie in together a little bit. So part of the need to do telehealth is our folks in rural areas, right? They just don't have access to the same care, number of resources, et cetera. And then they made another switch with Senate Bill 82. And previously, if you had an addiction issue or a mental health issue, you had to be diagnosed by a physician, by a doctor. And some people watching will say, that's a good thing, right? It is in some degree, but this is a behavioral health issue. And so when you have a behavioral health issue, master's level clinicians are the people really on the front line here. And this bill allows master's level clinicians to do diagnoses around mental health and addiction and oversee treatment plans. And so we've got a massive workforce shortage right now. I think about 7,000 counselors short. And so this will really help alleviate some of that. It's not a solution, but it's a part of the
Big
puzzle
piece.
moving forward.
Yeah.
That's great. And especially with the telehealth, with transportation, someone that is ill that can't get out of the house. Like you said, it's years advancement as a result of something difficult that we were all going through, but it is a positive change. So
Hard to talk about silver linings with the
Yeah.
year that we've had, but this really will advance how we deliver services.
yeah.
Yeah. Any
That's
other
great.
things jump out as far as issues that were tackled a little bit?
So one really big deal that we won't talk about for a couple years, House Bill 1468 was what they called the 988 legislation. And so for those of you that don't know, suicide prevention lines, we've got a variety of different numbers in the state, kind of based on where you're at and all over the country. And the federal government passed a law that by July of 2022, all the suicide prevention lines have to be switched to 988. So no matter where you're at in the country, it doesn't matter, you don't have to look up different telephone numbers, you don't have to do anything, you just hit 988 and it'll get you connected to crisis folks. Well, Indiana is using this opportunity to really transform our crisis response. And so follow me for a second, this is in the weeds, but if somebody calls right now and they're having a mental health crisis, we need mental health professionals, crisis response professionals, responding to it. We see what happens sometimes when we don't have fully trained folks responding to mental health crises. And the goal is over the next couple years is this will really transform on how we respond to crisis. It won't just be law enforcement responding. We'll have this new 988 line, both for crisis responders and the ability to get people to crisis centers. So we're not putting people in jail for mental health issues. We're not clogging up emergency departments. And these other areas that really get bogged down, they're really expensive to utilize, and this is going to be the first steps in us building a whole new system. It's going to be amazing.
That's huge, is what that is.
Yeah.
That anywhere you go, it's the same number.
Absolutely. People are using the word transformational
Yeah.
when it comes to this, and I really believe it will. I try to, I get excited sometimes. I try to stay away from hyperbole, but in a couple of years, is 988 be a really big deal.
Yeah.
Right
Kinda
now
like
in
with
Indiana.
211.
Yeah, right now in Indiana, it's 211.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a little bit different. 211 is for resources.
Yeah.
Not necessarily. You can call and get hold of a counselor if you need to right now, but not for the true crisis where you're going to have to respond to something necessarily. And so,
So it's more of a 911 version.
absolutely,
Okay.
it'll actually, the goal will be have it housed with 911
Okay.
so they can work together. So if 911 gets a behavioral health call, they can give it to their friends at 988 to respond.
That's
or
fantastic.
if
Yeah.
988 gets a call and it's somebody, that's a real safety issue, they can give it to their friends at 911 and have them respond. 211, I'm sure, will be tied into that somehow as well. Indiana really making some big strides in this area.
That's exciting.
Asking legislators to use common sense, and they're actually doing it. That's a huge step, isn't it?
It's difficult. These areas are so nuanced, and we can't. I like giving our legislators a hard time, but we can't expect them to be experts in every area.
No.
And so having our government agencies and community partners really spending some time educating the people that make law has paid off a bunch.
Well, that's what I've noticed with some of ours just around here. Chuck Goodrich, Scott Baldwin, Victoria Sparks on the national level. One thing I've noticed with them is they listen. What's the issue? How can I help? It's kind of their way they look at it.
Yeah.
It's a good sign of leadership, especially for elected folks, to listen to experts in each area, right?
Yeah.
Knowing our limits as individuals and what we know or don't know. And when we get to an area where we don't, like you said, people being really willing to listen. And it felt like that happened a bunch this year.
Yeah. So what else?
So the big thing that everybody likes to talk about, I think, is money.
Yeah.
And so on the behavioral health and addiction side of it, we went into this session, and originally they were going to cut over $30 million to addiction and mental health. And part of that was because of the budget issues that COVID had on our state. And essentially, they were asking everybody to give back a little bit of money. But the overdose numbers are higher than they've ever been. We've had COVID going on, but the overdose epidemic has raged as well. And so there was really a full court press with our legislators to say, hey, I understand why you want to do this, but now's not the time. We really, really cannot make cuts right now. If we want people to go back to work, if we want people to go back and be employed and healthy after this long year, we need to have access to these mental health and addiction services. And so we had a couple really great advocates throughout government. Senator Kreider sponsored several bills and was fighting behind the scenes. Senator Sturwald, the lieutenant governor. And with all that advocacy, we were able to get all of those dollars restored. The original bill did about half of it, final bill all of it. And then on top of that, we got a great surprise in the final budget bill. Our legislators dedicated $100 million over the next 2 years from the COVID relief funds specifically to mental health and addiction issues.
That is awesome.
So not only did we get the $30 million put back in, $100 million to mental health and addiction over the next 2 years. And wow.
Gives me
Yeah.
chills. That is awesome.
That's fantastic.
It's amazing to see them
recognizing a
step up.
problem and trying to do their best to fix it.
Yeah.
That's really what it's about, isn't it?
It was, and they were, they looked at, when we were advocating for this, they said, hey, there was money that was unspent in this space. Why are you telling us we need more? And they took the time to listen while. It was COVID. We couldn't access the funds. People were stuck inside. There was a variety of reasons. And so to have them restore it and then give an additional $50 million per year for the next 2 years, we thought spoke, our actions speak louder than our words. And we speak with what we put money behind usually. And they did that this year.
Well, thank you for your leadership on this, and thank you for understanding it for the rest of us. Brandon George, thank you.
Thank you.
We're gonna
Thank you
take a
guys for
break.
having me.
Oh, thank you. We'll be back with more Connecting Hope after this. Welcome back to Connecting Hope, presented by the Hamilton County Council on Alcohol and Other Drugs. Will Hampton with Monica Greer, and hey, we almost forgot success story. We've got one right here,
yes. Let's see it.
Success stories are our favorite part
Yes,
of the show.
yeah.
And let's take a look. This is actually a part 2 of one of the earlier segments. Success stories here on Connecting Hope.
The beast of addiction was unleashed in me probably when I was in 8th grade. I sustained a pretty traumatic injury in a high school sporting event, and I was given a prescription of pain medication that I took, and not only did it relieve the pain, but it took me to a different place inside of me. It made me feel things that I'd never felt before, and took away, yes, the physical pain, but also a lot of mental pain, and put things out of sight, out of mind for me. Growing up, I had a father who didn't know he was an addict, but took pain medication on a very regular basis for his back. And the transition from my medication to getting into his medication was very easy for me. He would give me a lot of his pills, and that continued the out of control spiral. Once out of high school, like a lot of people, I started drinking with my friends, so I was mixing opiates, marijuana, and alcohol on a regular basis. And finally, my life really got out of control after probably about 10 years of that. I hit it pretty well for about 6 to 8 years, and about 10 years into that, I had a family member come to me and tell me that I needed help, and I didn't believe them. I thought I could do it on my own. And I started selling things to support my habit. I would steal things to support my habit. Any way I could get money other than my paycheck, which was gone Friday by the time I got home, to a drug dealer, I would do to support my habit so that I didn't get dope sick. I finally went and got help here at the Progress House in Indianapolis, and I learned a new way of life. I learned what true friendship was. I learned what a brotherhood was. I learned how to work a 12-step program, how to find a power higher than myself, find God, and to know that I'm not Him, and to live by His will and not my will. And structured, it was you're in a house with 60 to 100 guys who are in the same boat, who are in the same shoes, who have went down the same path, done the same things that I had done. And for me, a lot of times I would feel like no one could be worse than me. Like I was the worst of the worst. I had done things that no other human being could have fathomed doing. But come to find out, a lot of those guys have done the exact same things, and some have done worse things than I have done. So that group of guys that I was with at that time, and the staff there, and the people who would come into the building for outside meetings, I learned a lot about not only me, but about what I needed to do to be a better person. So the structure was good, the love that place pours out, and through the power of prayer and through God's will, today I'm free, the chains are broken, and I've went from a homeless, strung out felon, in and out of jail, in and out of, sleeping in a car or a hotel, to being a homeowner and a small business owner, happily married, and giving back what was so freely given to me through a 12-step program of AA and NA. Our company now, we hire people who are fresh into recovery. We work with one of our local county jails facilitating Narcotics Anonymous meetings to the inmates there to give them a leg up, so that when they get out, they'll have some tools to work with, like I did when I got released and went to the Progress House. I had some tools to work with. I was given things. I paid attention in meetings, And those things stick with me, and the program tells us to give away what was so freely given to us, and that's, you know, a mantra that we use at our household now, is to help the next person.
Always great stories. I love their passion. I love their ability to reach out and help others. That's what I've noticed the most.
Yeah, yeah, that connects them all. And I always get something different hearing
Yeah.
their stories. Yeah.
I've noticed there's, in the like 37 shows we've done, we may have, because we've done some repeats, maybe 25 to 28 different people.
Yeah.
All of them really are working hard.
Yeah.
It's a lifelong journey, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah. And you can feel their passion just by listening to them.
Yeah.
That helps them move forward to the next day.
Well, we do appreciate them sharing. Thank
Yeah.
you very much. Taking a break now, back with more Connecting Hope after this. Thank you again for watching Connecting Hope. I'm Will Hampton with Monica Greer. Wrapping up this segment, want to say thanks again to Brandon George. I love the way he is so dialed in, and him being dialed in helps a lot of people, doesn't it?
Oh yeah. Yeah. He very smart, and he can really put it on my level at least of what's going on with the
You're
legislative.
saying I can't, I'm still not there. Is that what you're saying?
I am not there at my level. I didn't want to speak for you.
Yeah. Real quickly, the Youth Service Awards are Monday.
Yep.
And that's going to be a big day for a lot of people.
Yeah, yeah, at the courthouse commissioners, and yeah, it's always amazing
Yeah.
to see all the work that the kids are doing.
Well, thank you for all your hard work, and the Hamilton County Council on Alcohol and Other Drugs. You guys are doing great stuff. Thank you.
Thank
Keep
you.
it going.
Okay.
Keep doing what you're doing, and that'll do it for this edition of Connecting Hope. Thank you so much for watching.